Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about my 2024 top reads. We're going to be doing 24 books of 2024 and I'm not going to be doing these in any particular order. So this is not from least favorite out of the 24 to favorite, just because I'm very indecisive and I definitely cannot rank all of them right now or rank which ones are my absolute top. I will eventually, but that is not what we're doing today. Today we are just going to be talking about the 2024 books that I enjoyed the most out of all the books that I read. So I read so far 67 books in 2024. We still have like 10 days left of 2024 at the time of recording this video. My goal is to get to 70. We'll see if I do. I think that I will, but you never know. I could hit a slump tomorrow and then we're stuck at 67 books, so we'll see. I do have the majority of these books in physical. There's 24 books, 15 of them I have my actual physical copy of, and then 9 of them are on my Kindle or somebody is borrowing them right now. So we're gonna start out with my physical books that I have here in person. First book we have is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. I am not a contemporary romance girl. I used to read a lot of contemporary romance, but lately I just have not been liking it. I don't like the miscommunication trope that always happens in it. But this book proved me wrong, I've gotta say. This was a 5-star contemporary romance read for me, and I absolutely loved it because there was no miscommunication trope. So if you're interested in reading some contemporary romance books, but you do not want that awful miscommunication third act breakup that seems to be in every single one of them, definitely give this book a try because it's absolutely perfect. And it is basically about these two people who meet at a party and there's an accidental pregnancy and it's about them navigating that, and it is so good. Next one we have is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. This is the second book in the Powerless series. I did read Powerless last year and then I read Powerful and Reckless this year. I did enjoy Reckless more than I enjoyed Powerful. A lot of people did not like this book because they said that it lacked plot, and there definitely is a plot. It just takes a while to get there. This book is purely vibes, in my opinion. I did rate it a 5 stars. As you can see, I absolutely tabbed the crap out of it, but I read this in one day on release day, and this truly is for the girls who love banter and tension, because that's all this book is vibes, banter, tension, and fun stuff. Third book comes out in April. This one is The Dawn of the Cursed Queen by Amber V. Nicole. This is the third book in the Gods and Monsters series. These are dark urban fantasy romance books, and Amber is one of my favorite authors because she is literally so sweet. She always comments when I make videos about her books. She's always responding to comments to everyone on her videos. She literally is just a super active author on socials, and that makes me enjoy her books even more. This series is plotted to be 7 books, I think, which is kind of insane. This was definitely one of my favorite ones of the year. I did receive an ARC of this book, and then I bought the physical afterwards for the shelf trophy. There's also some character art of the main male and female character. I did get into quite a few Elsie Silver books this year. I've read all of her books except for Frontrunner so far, and that's the only one that's out that I haven't read. But one of my favorite ones actually kind of took me by surprise. It was a photo finish, which is the Gold Rush Ranch series, which was her first series that she ever wrote. And this one is about Violet, who, if you have read the Chestnut Springs series, is the Eaton boys' sister. So she goes to this Gold Rush Ranch. This was kind of your twist on the classic cowboy ranch romance that she's always writing, and I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. Keeping on the Elsie Silver train, we have Powerless. This is my favorite out of all 5 of the Chestnut Springs books, and it's not technically a cowboy romance because he's a hockey player and she's a ballet dancer, but I was a ballet dancer, so this really resonated with me. I loved it. Elsie Silver books are probably the only contemporary romance that I regularly read and enjoy, but her books are extremely predictable. They literally follow the same exact formula every single time, so just be prepared when going into them. So good. Next we have The Crimson Moth or Heartless Hunter if you have the US version. This is the UK version, Fairy Loot Edition, And I read this on my book retreat this year in one day because literally that's all I was doing for 5 days straight was reading at this book retreat. It is a very good time, and I will be doing a full vlog series of book retreat when I'm there in March, so that's an exciting thing to look at. I'll link my friend Hannah's video below. She did the book retreat vlog for last year's retreat. This is a YA fantasy romance, and it's a witch and witch hunter, and it is so much fun. I've never enjoyed a witch book as much as I enjoyed this. Typically, I don't like witch books at all. This was like not super chanting, ritually at all. Next, we have the controversial queen herself, Miss House of Flame and Shadow, that everyone seems to absolutely hate. I very much so enjoyed this book. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I loved it, and my tabs go absolutely insane. I read this in 2 days. I did take off work. I used a day of PTO to sit at home and read this book. And I regret nothing, and I absolutely loved it. I know a lot of people are sitting at like a 3. It was like a 4.5 for me. Lydia Servos is my favorite character and possibly my favorite Sarah J. Maas female character in all of her books, which is a crazy thing to say, but I do stand by that. This book made me fall in love with her. The character development went crazy. Next, we have The Songbird in the Heart of Stone, which is the 3rd book in the Crowns and Iaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. Serpent in the Wings of Night and The Ashes in the Starcursed King is the original duology, and this is the 1st book in the 2nd duology of her series. It's planned to be 6 books total, comprised of 3 duologies about 3 different couples. So this is the 2nd couple, and it was so much fun. I really was a little bit hesitant to start this book just because they are like venturing to the underworld to resurrect a dead god. I don't love that, but the underworld was very much so bad in this book, and it really didn't focus fully on that the whole time. There was other things that was happening in regards to the character development and just working through trauma with both the female and male main character, which just made it a super emotional read. We got a bunch of tabs on this one as well. A lot of these you will see have lots of tabs because I really enjoyed them, and when I really enjoy a book, I tab the absolute heck out of it. The next 2 books are A Promise of Peridot and A Reign of Rose by Kate Golden. This is the completion of the Sacred Stones trilogy. The 1st book in the series is A Dawn of Onyx, and I read A Dawn of Onyx when it was indie published, and then she got picked up by a traditional author, and I had to wait almost 2 years to get A Promise of Peridot, and oh my gosh, it was so worth it. I absolutely loved it. This is actually, A Dawn of Onyx is the 1st book that I ever tabbed. So this is the 1st completed series that I have ever tabbed, which was really fun. But truly, this series is criminally underrated. I do not see enough people talk about it, and it's so good. It's your classic fantasy romance series, but you have shifters, you have fae. Truly, such a well thought out, planned, and paced series. Next book we have caught me by a little bit of a surprise. It took me a minute to get into it, but once I was into it, I actually couldn't put it down, which is Quicksilver. I did get this copy on Amazon. I know a lot of people don't know where to get this copy. It was an option on Amazon when I looked it up. This is the paperback. I'm not sure if this is still available because she did just become traditionally published. And I know the traditionally published one has the original cover with Kingfisher that's like crying the silver tear on it. But guys, literally this book, it was actually, I remember at page 80, I was very slowly working my way through and I got to page 80 and could not put it down. I was on my way to a work trip right before this, and I knew I was gonna have absolutely 0 time to read once this like work trip event started. And I stayed up so late the night before we left and then read the entire airplane there, and then right when we got to the hotel before I officially started working, I sat down and was like, we are finishing this immediately. This is not a slow burn. I think that's the biggest critique that I get about this, is it felt a little bit of insta-love-y, which I also don't like. I like a slow burn, but I have been reading a lot of slow burns, so this kind of was a breath of fresh air that I didn't have to wait forever for them to get together. But the ending twist was insane. The whole ending scene was crazy in and of itself, but the actual cliffhanger at the end of the book made me so excited for the second book to come out. And I truly did not know how this was going to wrapped up in a nice perfect little bow, but also at the same time, not really. But it did give you, although it did have a crazy cliffhanger at the end of it, it wasn't a cliffhanger in the sense of, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna be able to sleep till I get the next book. Like, it did wrap pretty well at the end. It didn't leave you hanging with a crazy, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen ending, but left you with enough to really want to see what's gonna happen in the next book. The last physical books that I have are the Assistant to the Villain series. I read these on our cruise that we went on this year, and they were honestly just so much fun. I gave both of them a 5 stars, and the best way to describe these books is the TV show My Lady Jane, but just put it in book format. It's essentially a unserious rom-com of a fantasy book. You have that kind of dry humor throughout it. It's very fun. It is a insanely slow burn, like crazy slow burn. We have not gotten anything yet, but book 3 does come out next September, so I'm very excited about that. Not a ton of tabs on these ones. There's about 5 on this one. They're just kind of hard to see because I used one color, and I just have 1 on the first book. But this was definitely one series that I was like, wow, I can't believe I waited so long to start this. I should have read this forever ago. That concludes all the physical copies that I have. So now we're gonna get into my list of ones that I read on Kindle or that someone is borrowing and talk about those. I'll put the pictures of the books up here though. The first one I have on the list is Silver Wings Golden Games, which is the second book in the God Kissed Bride series by Evie Marceau. And oh my gosh, caught me by such a surprise. It was one of those books that I saw probably a vibes video on TikTok that I was excited to watch. And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. I need a quick little fantasy romance Kindle Unlimited book. So I went and got it, downloaded it, and was so surprised at how good this book was. I immediately went and got on the author's mailing list. I did get an arc of Silver Wings and Golden Games, and then the new book, which is the third one, I also got an arc of, but it did just come out and I was not able to finish it before. And that one is called Steel Heart Iron Claws. And the fourth book in the series comes out next year. So there's so many books in this series. Right now there's 3 finished. That's my all-time favorite trope in it, which is forbidden romance. Forbidden romance will forever be my favorite. The next series I have on here is actually 3 books, and I audiobooked them, and they were some of the best audiobooks I have ever listened to, and each book progressively got better and better and better. The first one is called Bow Before the Elf Queen by J.M. Curl. The second one is Long Live the Elf Queen, and the third one is Fate Calls the Elf Queen. The first book was really good, felt like your classic fantasy romance book. I was like, yeah, it's good enough for me to continue to the second book. The second book got so crazy, and by the end of it, I was like, oh my gosh, this suddenly is one of the best series that I have ever read. And then by the third book, I remember screaming in the car driving, listening to this audiobook. I actually constantly had this audiobook on, which is hard for me. I usually like audiobooks, but I'm not so obsessed with them that I'm have to be listening to them all the time because I need to know what's going to happen next. No, I could not stop listening to this audiobook, and the narrators are so good. It is a dual narration, so it's a male and a female, and they're actually married in real life. So their chemistry is so good. You can just hear it through the screen. But truthfully, it is so hard for me to talk about this series without spoiling anything because there is such a big shift between book 2 and book 3 that just takes the series in a whole new direction that you never thought it was going to go in. And it is so good. The next one is another phenomenal audiobook that I read, which is Till Death by Miranda Lynn. Imagine Moulin Rouge meets a adult, darker version of Caraval. That is what this book is. And the audiobook narrators just, again, did such a good job. This one was a duet narration, so it was actually every time that the male or female was talking, regardless of whose POV the chapter was in, it was that narrator speaking, and it was just so freaking good. The second book in that series also comes out next year, which I did not talk about in my 2025 releases because it was just released. And that comes out in March. It's called Nevermore, and it's a standalone in that world, so it's going to be a bunch of interconnected standalones, which is always a good time because you kind of have some of the world building already made, but you don't necessarily have to read all of them, or you could tell someone to jump in wherever you think they would most enjoy the books. The next one I have is Devious Gods, which is the 7th and final book in the Age of Vampires series by the Twisted Sisters. These books, guys, they are so underrated. I truly see nobody talking about them, and I cannot understand why, because they are so good. But there are 7 books, and essentially they unpublished them. They were the first series that the Twisted Sisters published. They unpublished them, rewrote them in adult form, and then republished them every like 2 to 3 months. They came out pretty quickly though. So I started reading that series back when the first 2 were republished in 2023. And then through mid 2024 is when they finally finished republishing all of them. And it was like clockwork. Every time a new one came out, it was the first thing that I was reading. And Devious Gods was actually the first book that I read on my book retreat. And I buddy read it with my friend, and we were screaming going back and forth because it was the end of this giant long series. Truthfully, I want every single series to end how that series ended because it couldn't have been a better happy ending. And that's exactly what I want in every single book ending. Especially fantasy romance books, because I feel like there's always something devastating and tragic that happens. And don't get me wrong, like there definitely was some devastating and tragic things that happened at the end of this series, but it just truly could not have wrapped up better. Truly. The next one I have is not an actually published book. It is a Dramini fanfiction, but I would be doing myself a disservice if I did not mention this book. It is Secrets and Masks by Emerald Slytherin. Guys, literally, Secrets and Masks was basically the darker version of Manacled, and Manacled's pretty dark, but this one I would say takes it just a little bit further. If you're somebody who does not like gore or torture, dark elements in books, I definitely would stay away from Secrets and Masks, but it was a dark alternate universe where Voldemort wins the war. In this book, I think it was something like 1,700 pages long, 1,700 or 1,800 pages long. It took me forever to read this book, and I felt like I was constantly reading it. Like it wasn't that it took me so long because I kept putting it down. No, I never stopped reading it. It was just so long that it took me forever to read. It absolutely crushed my soul, and I was sobbing at the end of it. It is not a happy ever after. So if you only like reading books that have a happy ending, definitely don't read Secrets and Masks because it does not have a happy ending. But sometimes you just need your soul to be crushed, and that is what Secrets and Masks will give you. So if you need that, definitely jump in. I would not suggest people starting with the Secrets and Masks if you've never read Dramini fanfic before, but it's a fun time, kind of. Then the last and final 2 books on my 2024 books is Avalon Tower and Veil of Dreams by Alex Rivers and C.N. Crawford. These books, it's the Fate Spy Academy series. 3rd book comes out next year, and I absolutely can't wait for it. This was another Kindle Unlimited fantasy romance that truly caught me off guard. I kind of just clicked on it, read the description. I was like, yeah, it sounds okay. I just need a quick little Kindle Unlimited read. So I started it and quickly realized how phenomenal it was. I think having it co-written by a male and female really did wonders for this book, because you had the male gaze in the sense of like war and battles and strategy and political intrigue, but then you also had the female gaze in the sense of romantic intrigue and character development and emotional, relational development, and it truly just meshed so well. I was absolutely obsessed with it. If you liked the Avalon High series on Disney Channel back in the day, that is the vibe of this series, but make it fairies with magic. And those are going to be all of my 2024 top 24 reads. I hope you guys add some of them to your TBR in 2025. There are so many good books in this list that are going to be continued back in 2025, so I'm very excited. But overall, it was a good year, and we'll see if maybe one of these next 3 books that I read to finish out 2024 will make it into my top 24 books. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a Merry Christmas!